Yahar. It's so freaking time for some freaking new IDs. Am I right or am I right to me hearties? We have some exciting shit today, boys. The Pequod Harpooneer Heathcliff. The Pequod First Mate Isang. You know me, I'm the biggest pirate fan. I have not played the dungeon yet, but, you know, doesn't mean I can't be excited for some pirates, alright? I think there's a universal language, and it's Yahar. And then we have patch notes, of course. But, you know, of course, when we're discussing the IDs, please be courteous to your fellow players, and do not spoil anything in the dungeon, of course. Not just for me, obviously it would be spoils for me too, but, you know, just in general, be courteous to your fellow players, and when you're discussing, do not spoil, of course. Let me just get the pen going on real quick, just, you know, in a little jiffy. We'll get this pen rocking, and then we can start reviewing some IDs. Am I right or am I right? Let's get this shit, boys. We got the Pequod Harpooneer Heathcliff. It's a 3-star, of course. 3-star Heathcliff. Let's freaking go. First thing that I see, obviously, bam, 2 envy skills in the same kit? Unreal, bro. Actually unreal. So half of his kit is like 3 out of the 6 skills are envy, which, I mean, when you say it like that, it's not too miraculous, because any ID with an envy skill 1 has 3 of their skills being envy out of 6, right? But this is obviously very different, because these are good skills that you want to see in their envy, so those are obviously very different. Generally, they're higher quality, right? So this is very important. Obviously, the first thing everyone's thinking of is, oh my god, dude, the middle IDs. Holy crap, dude, they synergize. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how good this ID actually is before we call it. But this is obviously unprecedented already, so that's very exciting. All pierce damage, of course, across the board, seems like. You know, not too shabby. Not really any complaints. We have good damage spread across most damage types. I feel like Pierce is probably the least saturated right now, but it's not by much. And of course, Rabbit does piercing damage too, so that's no problem. And then we have 2-coin skill 1, Stalk Prey. Pride, of course. On use, gain poise count. On use, gain aggro on the skill slot next turn. On hit, inflict bleed. Aggro is a little strange. The tank Heathcliff ID? I mean, last time we got like a bruiser tank ID, it was the incident, the Sunshower incident. You know, not the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life, to be honest. But, you know, I'm open to being wrong. You know how it is? So, you know, and then poise count, again, I don't have a vendetta against poise, but, you know, poise just needs a lot of support. Same with bleed. Bleed just needs a lot of support. They both have their own issues. So, we'll go into them a little bit in the future. It looks like we have more poise and bleed coming up, so we'll have plenty of time to talk. Snag Harpoon is skill 2. Oh my goodness, bro. 3 coins. Pretty good. He has an ego skill as a skill 2. I'm kidding. On use, gain aggro again. On use, gain poise based on bleed on the target. On crit, inflict bleed count based on bleed potency. Okay. Poise based on the bleed. Interesting. On crit, on second coin is hella weird, though. I don't know how I feel about that, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest, but I'm not really complaining. It's just weird. But I mean, it is a very powerful on crit effect if we're being honest with ourselves. It is a very powerful on crit effect. If you crit, you can what's it called? You can stack an insane amount of bleed count on bleed potency. The only thing is, bleed count, if we're talking just a bleed team, bleed count is not really the problem. Bleed potency is the problem. When you're trying to stack your bleed as high as possible, bleed potency is the problem. we have plenty of sources of bleed count, namely mostly Kurakumo Ryoshu and Rhino Mersault are like the two main bleed engine pieces we have right now. And they stack count like ridiculously high. And then we have other miscellaneous bleed IDs, of course, right? So, you know how it is. I think if it were me, I would probably want this the other way around. Inflict potency based on count instead of the other way around. But, I mean, it's still a lot of bleed potentially, so that's fine. And then poise based on bleed is whatever. And then we have Sever Knot as the skill 3. At X plus NV res, Clash Power. At X plus plus NV res, Coin Power. At X plus 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 NV abs res, Coin Power. Okay. So clearly he's supposed to synergize with the middle. That it's very obvious. He's supposed to synergize with the middle. Especially the abs res. Very, very clear. On hit, inflict bleed. At less HP threshold, inflict bleed. At a lower HP threshold, inflict bleed. Twice he does it. And then the last coin on crit deals plus X damage on crit. Okay, so it's similar to Pirate Gregor, it seems like, where he deals bonus damage based on crit if he crits on the last coin. That seems kind of, decent. The only thing I'm thinking of is, like, his poise might be kind of hard to stack. He doesn't really have a good way to get poise. I'm just, like, unless his numbers are really good. On the poise, like, on the poise count and the poise potency, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think. If you use Blade Lineage Sun, maybe. Like, obviously, he's like the Band-Aid fix. Blade Lineage Song is the Band-Aid fix for all poise IDs. So, to be honest, it might be doable, but this is tough. The only way he can gain poise potency is based on your bleed stack. So, it's really, really weird. I mean, of course, this is just going to be a bonus in all likelihood. I'm assuming that the coin power is going to carry it, but that's tough. And then his defense skill is a counter. Obviously, not the biggest counter fan. You know me. On use, gain aggro. Combat start, gain defense level up by poise on self. I mean, defense level up is pretty good, actually. Because it turns it into kind of a discount guard skill, which is not horrible. I just wish, like, if a unit has aggro, I wish that they had a guard or an evade. But, I mean, it's not horrible. Very weird that it doesn't have a damage type. That has to be a mistake. I mean, that's just super weird. This has to be a mistake. That's so weird. Why would it not have a damage type? And then we have passives, Mutilated Tattoos. Gain offense level up and defense level up next turn every time an ally, including this unit, is attacked. That's pretty solid, actually. Gain more of each of the attacked allies from the Pequod, so himself, mostly, because he has aggro, I'm assuming. Deal more damage the less HP this unit has. So he's looking to get hit. He's looking to take damage. He's looking to tank. I understand. Makes sense. Deals more damage the less HP this unit has is especially potent. Potentially, depending on the values they decide to give him. I'm thinking defense level up and offense level up each time an ally is attacked. When you're running the middle, you can take a lot of hits. Like, you're going to be taking a lot of hits. Because Dawn's counter, obviously, her counter requires her to get hit in order to utilize it. At, like, Middle Sister Dawn or whatever. So that's getting hit. The middle synergizes with Diechi Rogia really well. Because Diechi Rogia, she has obviously an envy skill too, but she's also discard. So she can cycle her skills very quickly. So she has more... Functionally, she has more than just 2 envy skill 2s in her bag because she cycles out all of her skill 1s so quickly. So she can get to envy a lot, and she loves getting hit as well because her shield is massive. And she gets some damage bonus for getting hit. So, I mean, Heathcliff, Pequod Harpooneer fits absolutely perfectly into that team comp, if we're being honest. So that's pretty sick. And then his support passive, Desperation. One ally with the highest max HP deals more pierce damage the less HP it has. I don't think we have any, like, tanky pierce damage in the game. Like, most of the time, your tankiest members are gonna be, like, Rhino Mersault, which is Slash, obviously. And then a tiny bit of Blunt, I guess. But mostly Slash. And then, like, tank IDs are mostly Slash across the board, pretty much. And then, like, Ninclair is all Blunt, obviously. Reindeer is all Blunt, obviously. So there's not really anyone that, like, is going to be utilizing this well right now, I guess. Because the highest max HP is probably not going to be from a Pierce member. Generally, our piercing members are glass cannon type nuker units. So I don't think this is going to get very much use right now, unfortunately. But it is a little bit promising for the future, right? It does have some use for the future. It's just that I think Rabbit Heathcliff's passive also gives pierce damage. What's it called? It's like Doggedness or something? R-Corp. Isn't it like Doggedness? Yeah, one ally with highest speed deals bonus pierce damage. Which is honestly probably just better, I'm gonna be honest, because most of the time, the highest speed ally is going to be a DPS rather than the highest max HP being like a tank. So, you know, even though, again, there's not super speedy pierce DPS units, it's probably going to be easier to use than Desperation. So that's something. But off the top of my head, I think this idea looks pretty solid. Bleed just has, like, too many problems. Bleed, the main problem with Bleed, besides the fact that the Bleed units are a little bit mid, I mean, they're not bad, especially Rhino is actually pretty good. But the problem with Bleed units, is the fact that Bleed is just such a, like, flawed status effect, I'll say, in this game, because generally, we'll say in human fights, for one, you can't really focus on stacking a big Bleed stack in human fights because you can't target stuff, right? So it's really, really not practical to use Bleed in a human fight. And then when you're talking about, what's it called? Abno fights. Generally, the strategy in Abno fights is to stack, or to burst down one part of the abnormality as quick as possible so that you can deal fatal damage to the broken part, right? And when you, what's it called? When you, break an Abno part, 9 times out of 10, the Abno does not attack anymore. And if the Abno's not attacking, they're not taking bleeding damage, which is, like, the worst part. That's, like, the #1 problem. Is that it goes against, like, every rule, like, quote-unquote rule of combat in this game, because you're trying to stack a bleed on a part that you have no intention of breaking, right? Which is just, like, really not generally how you want to play fights if you want to go quickly. So, I mean, Bleed is just fundamentally flawed. In that regard. And then Poise is not doing much better, to be honest. Poise is doing okay. It's doing a little bit better now, because now they're mixing it with, like, ammo, and bonus damage, which is really nice. But Poise on its own has not really much inherent value at all. And the only synergy he gets from Poise here is, like, increased bleed count, which, again, is not super relevant. It is nice, but it's not super relevant. Compared to bleed potency, which he could be inflicting a lot of. But, you know, and then the on-crit bonus damage is obviously really, the main draw here for me, in my opinion. But again, like, bleed, the fact that he inflicts more bleed when the enemy's on lower health kind of makes no sense, because if you're hitting a broken part with it, right, let's say you're hitting, you're using Sever Knot on a broken part, right? The part is obviously going to be 0 health, so it'll hit both of these thresholds. But then inflicting bleed on it does absolutely nothing, right? Usually. Sometimes parts with 0 HP can still attack, but vast majority of the time they can't. So inflicting extra bleed on a low part is, like, really antithetical to what you're trying to do, which is a little bit unfortunate, I think. So personally, I would have preferred if this was like deal bonus damage based on the bleed it has or something, so that like, let's say it was like deal bonus damage based on bleed potency or something, so that if you were rocking a bleed team, and then you had a huge bleed stack and then the part broke, and it stopped clashing, right? You would at least still have a use for the bleed, because this skill would deal more damage to the target if it had a big amount of bleed on it, right? So that would make more sense than just making the target bleed more when it's already destroyed and you can't even clash with it anymore. I think that is kind of silly, but I don't know. Overall, I'm hella excited because he's a pirate. Also, because the middle IDs are pretty fun to use. They're just like not that good. Out of the two, I'd say Mersault is the winner. Dawn is just a little too much investment, team building wise, in order to justify using her most of the time. But Mersault can kind of fit into any team comp, if there's at least some envy, which there will be. So, yeah. In case you're new here, of course, we do 2 ratings. We do general rating. General rating is like casual play, I'll say. Don't be insulted by the fact I say casual. It does not mean, that's just literally everyone. 99% of players are casual, okay? I'm talking general content, clearing the story, mirror dungeon functionality, maybe charging charging egos that he has so that it can, help him clash in hard mirror dungeon, maybe, or something like that. Luxcavation, like farming or something, like, that stuff, like pushing story mostly, and general content, right? And, if you want to put him into a team, how well will he function in the team? What will he contribute? And, does he synergize well with other team members and stuff? Obviously, Pequod, Harpooneer, Heathcliff is going to synergize very well with the middle. That's obviously going to be his home. So I'm saying probably he's going to be pretty solid in a casual setting. I'll say, and he looks like he contributes pretty well. He can help bridge the gap between the middle. The middle is mostly about damage, straight damage, but he can actually inflict bleed, so you can do a middle bleed hybrid team maybe, because Rhino does have a skill 1 that's Envy, and his guard skill is Envy, so you can actually use him. So, you can do, like, middle Dawn, middle Mersault, Pequod, Heathcliff, Rhino, Mersault, and then, like, some other, maybe some bleed IDs, like, like Encorp Faust for Nails, because her Cackle skill 1 is Envy, and then, you'll figure it out. But, I mean, he seems honestly not bad for casual play, and just for having fun, and he looks hella badass. So, I'll give him like a 9 general rating. He'll probably be able to pull his own weight pretty nicely. The aggro is really nice. I mean, dealing more damage the less HP the unit has is a little bit strange, because if he's a tank Heathcliff, like historically, he does like to use AEDD, and the passive makes it so that it's very hard to kill him. So, I don't know how much this part will come into play, dealing more damage based on less HP, because he probably won't fall super hard on HP unless he has a bunch of stagger bars, which would be really unfortunate. But I think he's probably hella solid, to be honest, generally. If you put him into a team that's built around Envy Resonance and Bleed and stuff like that, I'm sure he'll do just fine. And then the second rating is for, if you're not in the 99% and you're hella sweaty tryhard, like me, the meta rating is what's for you. The meta rating is, I am going to compare him to the meta options and what the meta looks like, and I will tell you whether or not I think he is good based on his kit. Obviously, we don't know numbers, like, God forbid, like, you don't know, maybe he's got Enclair numbers. Like, when Enclair first released, what's it called? We thought he was like a bleed and nails ID, or like a bleed and burn ID, because that's all that we knew. We were just like, yeah, okay, his skills inflict some burn. Maybe we'll get some, maybe this is our burn support. And then his skill 3 rolls for fucking base 90 total power. Like, oh, how the hell is anyone supposed to know that? Obviously. But I'm going to err on the side of caution. There's no, I mean, this is like the Sunshower, or not Sunshower, the Spice Bush of this season. And Spice Bush last season was good, but he wasn't, like, ridiculously broken. You know, he wasn't, like, game-breaking, like, meta-warping, like, Ncorp Sinclair was, right? Even though Sinking Deluge is a very, very powerful effect, it wasn't, like, completely game-warping, where to the point where the balance of the game was put into jeopardy because he existed, right? So, you know, I think he's not going to be at that level. I don't think Project Moon would release an ID, like, ever again, pretty much like that. I think they learned from their mistake. So I'm going to assume that he has normal numbers. And obviously, we're going to be comparing him to Rabbit. There's no question about it. Let's not beat around the bush here. I don't think that Pequod, Harpooneer, Heathcliff is going to be better than Rabbit. Like, very small chance. I highly doubt it. Because Rabbit is just way too broken of a unit. And also, besides that, the fact that he has extra envy skills is kind of a problem in Railway because we don't really want to be generating a million envy. You know, envy is nice to have, but he contributes pretty much only envy to generate. And, I mean, an ID that only generates one Sin resource mainly is, like, kinda cringe, to be honest, because you're gonna need a good spread of everything. Mostly what we starve on in Railway is, like, Wrath, Gloom, and a little bit of Envy, admittedly, but mostly Wrath, mostly Gloom is what we're struggling on, and he doesn't really contribute much of anything there. Oh, I just accidentally cleared the entire thing. But yeah, general rating, we're gonna say 9. Meta rating, I think there's, like, little to no chance he replaces Rabbit. I'm gonna say 1, to be honest. Like, there's a little to no chance he replaces Rabbit. There's no way. I can't really see it. There's too much going against him, and there's too much, like, Rabbit is part of, like, the big 3 in this game. Like, you know, he's pretty, like, if he ever gets power crept, the game is fucking over, bro, to be honest. So, I think, I don't know. I mean, I'm hella excited for this ID, but obviously he's not going to be insanely meta material. He'll definitely be usable, though, and I'll have a hell of a fun time using him. And then we have Pequod First Mate Isong. Very neat. Let's start with the damage types, of course. It's going to be all Pierce. Same thing with Heathcliff, it looks like. 2 coins on every skill. Really weird, to be honest, but not completely unheard of. It's just a little weird. I think Sonk Don has a similar situation going on. So let's start with the skill 1, Impale. On use, gain poise count. Seems like the pirate IDs are all poise based from what I can tell. All of the sailor pirate IDs seem pretty poise based. So okay. On hit inflict bind, and on hit inflict bleed. Bind next turn is obviously very nice. On a skill 1 especially, that's pretty convenient. And then on hit inflict bleed is pretty whatever. I mean, it's whatever. Skill 2 is relentless stabbing. On use, gain poise count. At X plus poise, gain clash power. Okay. On hit, gain poise. Okay. On hit, inflict bleed. On crit, reuse this coin. He's gonna need, like, a lot of help to get this going. I mean, we'll read his skill 3 before I continue to judge this, because his skill 3 is what probably fuels it. Ambush. On use, gain poise. At X plus poise, gain coin power. On hit, gain poise count, and then inflict bleed. I mean, I don't know if he'll be able to sustain his poise enough to make it, like, to make this consistent. In order to make this pop off, you're going to need a shit ton of poise. I'm just gonna say it. You're gonna need so much poise in order for this to do anything. Like, you know, obviously that's the spiciest part of his kit, it looks like. I mean, we'll keep going. Defense is an evade skill, pretty bog standard evade skill. The first mate's Harpoon is the passive. On crit, inflict more bleed potency with skill effects. I mean, that's not completely horrible. Not amazing, because on bleed, him inflicting bleed is only on the second coin of each skill. Besides this one, obviously. This one can inflict it multiple times if you reuse, but then there's this one. So it's not even like he's consistently applying bleed potency, because only half of his coins on all his skills inflict bleed. So, I mean, that's kind of a whatever passive. And then the first mate's Acumen. When one ally with most poise crits, inflict more bleed potency with skill effects. Is there a single bleed ID that has poise on it? I don't think there is a single poise. I don't think there's a single poise bleed ID. I don't know who this is for, bro. If I'm blanking, then I apologize. But, like, I don't think there's a single ID in the game that has poise and bleed that wants this. So, I mean, that's, like, hella weird. So, first things first, inflict bleed, reuse this coin. That's like the main, this coin is the main draw. I don't think he'll be able to sustain the poise potency enough to consistently get crit though. His only real poise tool is skill 3 on use, and then he gains a little bit on hit on the first coin of skill 2. And then I'm assuming that this doesn't fuel itself. Like, I'm assuming that if this is, like, gain 6 poise, right? I'm assuming if this is gain, like, 6 poise, then this is not going to be at 6 poise gain coin power, right? It wouldn't... that makes no sense to do that. So you would have to use Relentless Stabbing into Ambush, which means that you waste one of these, which is, like, quote-unquote Cloud Cutter. I mean, we call everything Cloud Cutter. This is more like Shank on Ting Tang, I guess, in terms of reusing coin and whatever. So... I mean, there's a couple problems. First things first, I outlined the bleed problems. Second thing, poise is not consistent enough to make this really worth it. Third of all, in order for poise to work, you need BL Isang on the bench or in battle. And obviously, Pequod first mate, like, the biggest thing that first mate Isang would want is BL Isang on the bench so he can boost his poise and get this going. I guess that's why they use Isang as the sailor of choice, the center of choice. But, like, I don't know. Bro, let us have fun. Like, it would have been so sick if you could just get... And, I mean, I don't know if this has a use limit either. Like, if you just keep critting with this, like, does it just keep going? I mean, technically, infinite damage potential as long as you have poise counts, but I don't know. Seems kind of L, to be honest. I don't know. It doesn't seem that good. I don't know. It doesn't seem that good, to be honest. I mean, I can't see it competing with, like, W Isang or Sunshower anytime soon. Or even Molar is not bad. Actually, all of his IDs are not horrible, besides base, of course. But, you know, especially W Corp and Sunshower, or not Sunshower, Spice Bush. I don't think that this single skill is enough to carry him, based on just inconsistency at the very least. So, I mean, general rating? I don't even think I would want to include him on the team, on the, what's it called? I don't think I'd want to include him on the middle team. Because even though his strongest skill is skill 2, and he wants to use it, it's an envy skill, right? So you want to use it with, like, middle Mersault to gain power and reset over and over. I think I'd rather just have BL Isang on the bench so that Heathcliff can get extra poise, to be honest. Like, if I was doing a middle team, that's probably what I would rather do, to be honest. I don't even know, I don't think he's, like, that good, on, like, from what we can tell right now. So, even generally, I don't think I would use him. I'd probably give him, like, a 3, bro. I don't think he does not look that good. Meta rating, there's no shot in hell he's better than Sunshower. Or, I keep saying Sunshower, man. My apologies. I meant Spice Bush, of course, obviously. There's no shot in hell he's better than Spice Bush. So, that's like a 0 meta rating, bro. Like, there is no chance he's meta. This ID seems kind of trash, bro. I'm not gonna lie. I like pirates, but this guy is one fucking depressed pirate, bro. That's all I'm gonna say. And then, of course, we have patch notes. Dear manager, of course, we have the new extraction. And then, let's look at some changes, shall we? Active effects UI and combat phase toggle option added. Okay, so now you can disable the pop-ups when people gain status effects. I mean, sure, more options is always better. Esong's Sunshower Ego level adjustment notice. We have determined that, as it is now, Sunshower is much more powerful than other Ego of the same Hay levels. We have decided that it would be better to adjust Sunshower Ego from Hay to Vav to reduce its capabilities to fit the other Hay level Ego. Okay. Level adjustment will come into effect on December 21st. Resource cost needed for raising thread spinning tier will remain unchanged until December 21st. Okay. Please upgrade Sunshower before December 21st in order to use the current amount of resources to upgrade before it comes... Yeah, okay. Makes sense. 100% agree. If you do not have Sunshower max thread spin, do it. It is omega worth it. Thread spin 4 is, like, ridiculously powerful on that Ego. You should 100% do it if you have it, especially if it's going to be getting more expensive, because the, what's it called? The cliff-off level or something is going up from Hay to Vav, so it will be getting more expensive. So you should do your absolute best to get this tiered up. But this is actually hella interesting. I mean, they're correct. It is way too broken for a Hay tier Ego. It should have been a Vav tier Ego. It is really disgustingly broken. My main question is, like, is the sanity cost going to go up? Is the ego resource cost going to go up? We don't know, apparently, it looks like. I'll keep reading just in case, but I don't think we know. Yeah. So we don't know. I mean, I'm assuming the resources wouldn't change. They can't nerf it, obviously, because that's just, like, illegal. They can't nerf it, because of gacha regulation laws, so, you know, it's just not allowed to. So it makes sense that they would nerf it by moving it up a tier, but as of right now, it's not a nerf. I think it's actually a buff, obviously, because now you can equip Dim Shredder and, Sunshower at the same time, which is really, really strong, like, really good. Especially for Rupture, clearly, because the worst part about Rupture was that Isong was, like, his Dim Shredder was the main payoff for Rupture, besides the fact that it does, like, 1,000,000 true damage, of course, but he was, like, the main nuker for the Rupture team because of Dim Shredder, and you had to sacrifice probably one of the best Egos in the game in order to use it. So now you don't have to do that. There's no competition in the slot anymore, which is ridiculously good, especially for W Corp Isong. That is an insane buff to him, because his main drawback compared to Sunshower, compared to Spice Bush, was the fact that he relied so heavily on Dim Shredder in order to make his entire kit work, because you need Dim Shredder passive to charge him effectively. So now this is, like, way better for him also. And just besides gameplay wise, just like game design wise, it makes sense to move it up a tier, because if they ever want to release another Hay tier Ego for Isong and Sunshower stayed in that slot, they would need to make it more broken than Sunshower, otherwise it would not ever be used, right? So it makes sense, because otherwise they would, like, inevitably have to power creep themselves if they want to release a Hay tier Ego that people would use for Isong. So it makes so much sense. Now that it's a Vav tier, they can balance around it being Vav tier with other Ego of the relevant, like, appropriate power level. So it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, I think this is just a dub all around, boys. I think honestly it's just a huge dub all around. Unless they nerf the Ego's resource cost or sanity cost or something in some way, which I'm pretty sure they are not going to, because it doesn't say, and I don't think they're allowed to. But if they do, then it's an L. But Otherwise, this looks like an insane straight up buff, actually. If we're being honest. And one thing I actually just noticed about this Isong, I'll get to it in the end, actually. I'll get to it in the conclusion. But yeah, this is a huge change. And then we have some bug fixes. Looking pretty standard. Mislabeling issue for Blind Obsession. Okay, makes sense. Fix an issue where Blind Obsession corrosion skill only applied 2 damage up only for this turn. I think it's supposed to be this turn and next turn, so that makes sense. Slightly raised volume of Kanto 5 Final Dungeon Boss BGM. Okay. Fix an issue where if the player skipped the credits, the fade out animation would play and hide the characters' names and titles. Okay. Fix an issue on mobile where using Ishmael's base ego after clearing Kanto 5 did not play the ego voice line. Okay. Fix an issue where the Pierce power-up buff icon did not display. Okay. Fix an issue where entering a certain cutscene under specific circumstances did not display dialogue. Sure. Fix an issue where in the skill chaining phase, the arrow image resource did not load properly. Sure. Fix an issue in Story Dungeon Floor 2 where a certain Abno's predation skill would target the sinners instead. Sure. Interesting. And then fix an issue in the Story Dungeon Floor 3 where certain Abno's summon unit resource did not disappear upon death. Oh, like the sprite, I guess. Sure. In Floor 3, where if it was defeated under certain circumstances, their summoned units did not die and the players were unable to complete the combat encounter. So, okay, soft lock fix, I mean, that's appreciated. Fix typos, of course. An issue where inaccurate voice lines played for certain sinners and certain choice results in story dungeons. Okay. Adjusted settings so that for the same server request, retries the only option for specific server requests that require a UI refresh. I'm going to be honest, I don't know what that means, but, I mean, that's something. And then added on-death VFX and SFX when a sinner dies while equipped with a non-base ID. Really? That's actually interesting. I'm assuming that, that means that they went back and recorded on-death what's it called? On-death sprites and stuff. Like, they made on-death sprites for every sinner ID, which is, like, really kind of sick, to be honest. Considering right now we just have the pile of gore of the base sinners. Now we get special visual effects and sound effects for when different IDs die. That's very cool. Okay. That's pretty nice. An issue where on mobile, known issues, of course. An issue where the sinner's self-introduction cutscene was missing in a certain part of the main story prologue tutorial. Sure. Okay. And then the last is Lunacy Comp, of course. Okay. We're looking pretty solid. So in conclusion, we'll go to Isong first because there is something that I just realized. He does not have Sloth in his kit, which is really tough. Because Isong's egos are really good, generally. Besides his 10th tier slot, which is just okay. But the rest of his egos are really good. Base ego's really good. Dim Shredder's pretty solid, depending on, you know, your strategy. It's pretty solid. And then Sunshower is obviously amazing, right? So, the fact that he can't fuel Sloth on anything is actually tough. That's really, holding him back, genuinely. Because he is a very sloth-dependent character. He wants to have a lot of those resources. Because most of his he's like a utility character, right? Like, his IDs are mostly utility. They don't actually provide that much damage. And because of that, his skills are usually not very good in general. Besides, like, a select few exceptions, of course. So, he uses his egos a lot. So, he wants to have a lot of sloth. And the fact that he doesn't generate any is tough. Whoopsies. The fact that he doesn't generate any is really tough. So, I mean, yeah, I don't think this idea is very good, to be honest. Harpooneer looks solid, though. Obviously, his look is solid. And his kit looks solid. I don't think he's going to be meta because Rabbit is obviously turbo broken. But, for what he is, which is obviously basically made for the middle, he will probably perform just as well as you expect. And then patch notes are as usual, of course. So I mean, we're looking pretty solid. to be honest. I'm hella excited for Harpooneer Heathcliff. But, yeah. I think that's just about going to do it for today. I will see you in the next video, I guess. Or the next stream, if you decide to tune in. I will do the story dungeon. Of course, please, a reminder in the comments. Feel free to discuss the IDs and the patch notes, of course, but please, if you can, refrain from spoilers, not just for myself, but also for your fellow players. Of course, not everyone has had the chance to experience the entire chapter, so I would appreciate it if you did not spoil. Just because I don't understand the context for the Pequod Harpooneer, whatever, just because I don't understand the context of the ID does not mean I can't appreciate that he looks freaking badass. So, you know, please be courteous. That is all I ask, and I will catch you in the next one. So, yeah, hey, peace out, boys.